아이들
기억해
영원히 사랑해.
Welcome to Eastertide. This is the season of mystery, or as the early church called this, a time of mystagogy, the teaching of mysteries. And my name is Heather Murray Elkins, and I do welcome you to a time of mysteries, holy human stuff. I wanted to walk us through the journey that we have been on from the beginning of Lent to where we are now in Eastertide. We have traveled with Jesus from the entrance into Jerusalem, from his teaching in the temple and those hard words that he had for those who collaborated with the empire, the overturning of the tables, and then the invitation to the upper room and that table of forgiveness, and from that table into the Garden of Gethsemane, and then the garden turns into the court, and that court leads him to the cross. From the Garden of Gethsemane, we then travel to the Garden of the Resurrection, Easter. And this should be the time of the teachings of those mysteries that we have encountered and embraced. But every single step of this way, the Holy One, the human one, the beloved of God, asks us a question. Who do you say that I am? This question might be able to be answered easily in the glow of Easter. Well, this is the risen Christ. But it is a difficult question to ask when day after day and night after night we are confronted with the suffering of innocence. Whether we are looking at the terrible images from Sandy Hook, or that face of a young boy named Tamir Rice, or the shooting at the Parkland High School, or the children of Syria who tonight are dying from having poison baptize them almost as if dropped from the sky in bombs. The question that keeps presenting itself, how do you trust a God of love in the face of the suffering of such innocence? How can we believe in a God of love in the face of such evil? This is a hard question. Who do we say that Jesus is? This is also a time of remembering a difficult memory about the suffering of innocence. It was April 16th, 2014, and the passenger ferry, Sewol, was en route from Incheon toward Jeju. And it was filled with school children. It was carrying 476 people, and most of them were children off for a day, off for a field trip. And they were filled with joy at being able to do this rather than be in school. This vessel was filled to the brim with people, many of them young, but it was also overfilled with cargo. Twice the amount that should have been on that ship had been loaded, and the profit had outweighed the safety of those children because it was not even securely fastened. And it began, the terrible story began, as the boat began to list and settled deeper and deeper in the water. And by that morning, by 8:58, the captain had to send out a distress signal. Now, they were told by the crew and the captain, those children were told to behave, to stay in place, to be calm, and their teachers were instructed to keep them safe where they were, not to leave the ship.
코드 블루 레드, 코드 블루 레드. 이거 보이시죠? 지금 60도예요. 각도가. 얘 앉아있는 거 보이시죠? 얘는 지금 정자세로 앉아있는데 이게 60도. 보이죠? 나 무섭다 진짜. 나 이거 어떡하냐. 나 무서워. 나 살고 싶어. 나 구명조끼 입었어요.
뒤지기 싫어요. 지금 이 상황은 지금 기울어지고 있습니다.
나 듣기 싫어.
진짜 물 들어가면 진짜 우리 나가야 돼요. 엄마한테 전화해볼까? 엄마 나 마지막 있으니. 기울어졌어.
야, 나도 살려줘.
굉장히 자리에서 움직이지 마시고 안전으로 잡고 대기해주시기 바랍니다.
진짜 침수되는 거 아니야?
쏠리는 거 장난 아니야. 여기 좀 쏠려. 내리고 싶어. 진짜 진심이야.
Official help was on the way. They were going to be rescued. But the help never came, not in time, for 304 passengers, most of them children. Of the 172 survivors, more than half of those were not rescued by official help, the Coast Guard, but by small fishing boats who had come to try to save children from drowning. It was a terrible story of innocence. And you could hear that story in the halls of Drew long before it began to make national news, because Drew Theological School's connection with Korea is of long standing. It's probably best described as sharing heartstrings. Hundreds of incredible pastors and scholars and missionaries have come from Korea, passed through these gates, and returned back to the world to do that work called by Christ. But on April, hearts were breaking. Students were weeping, praying, raging against this random act of evil. And this act of evil was caused by greed. And hearing that pain, that grief, that anger in the hallways suddenly reminded me of a passage from Mark 9:42 that made the question, "Who do you say that I am?" even more difficult to answer. This passage that says, "If anyone causes one of these little ones, just one, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them if a large millstone were hung around their neck and they were thrown into the sea." But it was the little ones who were thrown into the sea, the little ones who drowned. Who is this Jesus then? And listening to the grief and thinking about that passage, I had a vision. It was a vision of a map of Korea, north and south together. And it was depicted, as it often is, as a tiger. I had a vision of a country that was a tiger. And then that map, that tiger, somehow connected to this question, who do you say that I am? Because that vision was not of Jesus, meek and mild, but a Jesus fierce and wild, tiger Jesus. And I went looking for the poem that many of us still have to learn in school. William Blake, Tiger. tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the Lamb make thee? Who do you say that Jesus is? It took me a long time to struggle and answer out, and this is what I wrote. Gentle Jesus, meek and mild, soft and deep, lull to sleep, lift to keep, a child, a child, a child. Tiger Jesus, fierce and wild, snarl and awe, stalk and claw, defeat, devour any who betray, a child. The sinking of the ferry resulted in widespread social and political reaction throughout South Korea, and many criticized the actions of the captain and the crew and the ferry operator and the shipping regulators and the Coast Guard. The mothers of the children who drowned demonstrated outside the Blue House for months, in the rain, in the cold, in the heat. They were fierce as tigers in their demands for justice for their children. And ultimately, President Park was forced out of office, and she was sentenced to 24 years in prison. That is the justice of a loving God. That was one way I tried to answer the question, who is the one named Jesus? But it took me several more years to find an artist, a gifted student from MTU, who could actually bring that vision to life. Behold, I will show you a mystery. The one who made the Lamb, the one who is the Lamb, Jesus, meek and mild, Jesus, fierce and wild. In what distant deeps or skies burn the fire of these eyes? Who do you say that I am?
한 아이를 호랑이 예수님 격렬하고 사나워 포효하고 핥힌다네. 당신의 아이를 죽인 자를 누구든지 추적해서 삼켜버리시네.